Man, back again. It is your gracious host, man, King Crowder, bringing in 2024, right? I hope you had a good week. I hope you have started your Black History Month off, right? I hope your 2024 has been going as expected. Live on Sunday, brought to me by your gracious host, King Crowder, coming to you live with my take on things. But number one thing I want to talk about this week, man, is Black History Month. We're going to dive into what it is, how it happened, why it is important, and the truly impactful stories behind the legacy of it. Before we dive into it, let's go into it heavy, man. Aquariuses, where y'all at? Man, it's been a heavy week for Aquariuses, y'all. You know, I just realized my wife, my mother, my sister, my brother, they are all Aquariuses. I got so many Aquariuses around me. And if you don't know Aquarius season, those are your mental people. Those are your thought provokers. The people that are in deep thought, deep detail. They are the loved ones around you that will keep you motivated. Because they're going to tell you the truth. Even if it is a good truth or a bad truth, they will keep 100 with you. Also this week, man, remember, as you're going throughout this week, make sure you share what you learn with other people. The one thing we got to get past is, of course, Black History Month is a celebration for us, many Black Americans. But I want you also to remember this. Black History Month is American history. History is originally told from his side of the story or her side of the story. What we have to get to in our society is to tell the story, the truth, unapologetically and honestly. Once we get to that point that we start championing the truth, what really happens in real time, that means we will start to see more growth and real honest conversation. If I ask the person, right, when was the origin of Black History Month? Can somebody tell me when the founding story happened? I'm going to go ahead and tell you. The founding story of Black History Month started off as Black History Week. If you did not know, it started off in 1926. Remember, before we got the title African Americans, we were colored, the Negroes, now African American. Now you see that African American word being phased out. Now you hear words as far as Black American, especially if you know your legacy and your history of your country and where you come from. It was started as Negro History Week. This expanded back in 1926, of course, because, you know, hey, we had to talk about Black American accomplishment because it was something not taught. Because remember, back in those times, the school systems were still segregated. Prior to 1964 Civil Rights Bill enacted where they desegregated the schools were literally a Black and a white campus. There was no unified history. History prior to those times was taught from a much different lens and a much different point of view. As we keep going, as we get inspired post-civil rights action, then we'll be seeing it begin to expand into Black History Month, which we have been championing and celebrating since 1970. Now let's keep going. We understood where Black History Week came from. We understood how the names and terminologies have changed over time. Now we have to keep adding to our repertoire. Why is it so fuzzy to always say we have to learn Black history instead of saying, hold on, it's just American history, right? Prior to slavery and emancipation, they call it enslavement. I would like to refer to it as prisoners of war. When you think about slavery, they were literally captive because we had war with the Europeans that were coming to here, the conquistadors, the conquerors, the imperialists at the time. You saw many people that were native and coming to this country at war with each other. And if you ever think about history of war and how things happen, once you are captured, you have to work the land and work the fields of opportunity. That is literally how we got to this point of view. We like to put it all under one umbrella of slavery, but once you break it down in detail by detail, you understand that literally they were captive in captive labor and forced to work the fields. The reason why I believe pointing out this obvious point is such a big deal, ladies and gentlemen, is because once we go to modern times in history, there are two major wars. Look at my finger right here. I slid it, y'all. Can y'all see a little blood? And where is it at? Right here. A little blood when I slid it. Sidebar. There are two major acts that we must remember that are extremely influential in American history, which we don't discuss. That is the Spanish-American War, and the American Revolutionary War. I want all people to understand why these two wars must be discussed in the context of Black American history, which we're not going to call it history, y'all. I prefer to teach the story. The story is the truth about what happened, when it happened, and how it happened. Let's keep going again. If you did not know what the American Revolutionary War, that is when we earned our right from freedom from Great Britain. We earned our right from Great Britain by fighting against them during 1775. During this conflict, we chose to go into how we got our freedom. We fought against them, no taxation without representation. We used our military independence, and we went against the people of British and what they did to give us our own rights. There is one major point that every American must understand throughout U.S. history that we gloss over. Once the American Revolutionary War happened, once we earned our freedoms, there were three major things that came from that. We got the right to build our own laws. We had to pay a fee to Britain to get them up off of us. And there was a check and land allotments given to those in this country. The reason why the American Revolutionary War must be taught and preached upon more in this context is that is the first made of cause we saw people that were known as Negroes, coloreds at the time, not getting their just due. So when we speak about Black American history, or to me, the story of American history, this is one of the main entry points which we gloss over and do not discuss in detail. Once we gain this independence from military actions, remember, once we gained our freedom by defeating Great Britain, America was supposed to be evenly divided amongst itself. However, that is when we start to see the actual formation of the social caste system in American form. Let's put it in context. If you are a Negro, a colored, a Black American, an African American, Native Black, whatever terminology you like to use, whenever you hear this word being broadcast, this was the first meaningful act of when war happened in this country, which you were shortchanged. The American Revolutionary War was a point when it was supposed to be spreaded in a legal document. In a legal document, when you were supposed to get freedom, the right to do and do more from, that was not championed. The American Revolutionary War is a point in history that we all failed to look at with detailed eyes, that we all failed to teach, that we all do not show the real important factors of Black history. Not the history, sorry to keep saying it, even for myself, the story of America. The caste system was formed. An agreement was made. You have to pay these individuals for the enslavement, for fighting against us and earning their freedom. Step one, they lied. The document was signed. The gentleman agreement was given. However, once it happened, we failed to agree and honor the agreed. That is why we see now in this time, in this focus, that we see the words, cut the check, reparations. When you hear these type of words being mentioned in the lexicon, focusing on Black American, African American history, I want you to understand where they come from. Section A, the American Revolutionary War. The agreement was made, the allotment, the cause, the main results from it was given. We failed to honor the results. Section 2, we have another war that is very important for many Negroes, descendants of slaves, Black Americans, that we must learn, that was extremely impactful as far as the story of this country. What I love to give is Section B, the Spanish-American War. The Spanish-American War happened on the border, the Cuban Missile Crisis. The Spanish-American War was an explosion. The war was so bad that they had to get the POWs, the slaves, the formerly captive victims in this country to stand up again and fight for the United States. The people that were the great medicinal maroons, other individuals had to stand up and fight for this country. We had to have a gentleman's agreement by saying, hey, this new land, as far as we see as Texas, these new areas where the Spanish migrants will officially were, I live here now. You are going to have clear guidelines to what is going to be accepted and what's not. After this war was happening in this country, there was an agreement to pay, as they paid the Mexican government for what is now Texas. That is when you see the border between the two countries being fortified. An agreement was given as the United States had to pay what is known as Mesoamericas, Mexican, as Spaniards, whatever words you like to use. That gentleman agreements happened around this time. However, again, the colors, the Negroes, the red, brown skin, the African Americans, whatever words you like to use, did not get the honor of the agreement that was agreed to. Phase 2. This part of the war is so undertaught how it was a major event in the United States history. Whenever we decode our history of the United States and we tell the story in totality, we need to make sure we hit these major points. Again, we always go Civil War, which was important, but these two wars that happened in between it are hush hush. Why? Because these were wars that had money and just due bills that need to be paid. 2 times throughout American history where we saw our color caste system enforce us to not pay our accrued victims. That is why the drumming, the talking, the national talking points that we see are so strong until this day, because people are talking about things that happen in history that have showed us why the aggrieved have never, ever been properly compensated. Now that we have gotten to this point where we have discussed major points that have happened in the wars throughout the American history, right? The story of America is very complex. Everything we learned in high school prior is BS. If you ever want to read and learn something, I want you to, for number one, read Lies My Teacher Told Me by James Lowe. He's a phenomenal author. 2 books that I love that he wrote the most, Lies My Teacher Taught Me and Sundown Towns. I grew up outside of a sundown town. I never knew at the time because my father never discussed it with me, because many times in Black American culture, we don't discuss race, politics, and different things with our younger group, especially of men, which is something that is horribly done. We need to discuss these things unapologetically, openly, and honestly. The sundown town that I grew across from, my father and us went through there because he used to work in and out of there. Little and behold, young-minded Terrell, my father was gaining work and doing things. I had no idea the ideological statements my father was giving to me. Even though he mentioned to me about how it was unsafe to go here, how we need to protect ourselves, he never went past the point of why that needs to happen. My dad just mentioned, Rail, be safe. Be careful. When we go into this side of town, you must understand you are a taller male with a little bit of large stature to you. Yes, I know that you're not a bad person. Yes, I know that you mean well. But what you need to understand is that you will be perceived in a negative light, son. It's the truth of the matter about this country. It's the truth of the matter about where we come from. And it's the truth in the matter about this honest situation. Now, I never knew that because, like I said, my father didn't champion that and speak that in much as time as he should have of me growing up, especially amongst my brothers. I personally feel like he should have mentioned that more. But now that we've gotten older and we can start these type of things, I would like to emphasize it more, especially to young boys and young men, that the history of this country is not taught as much as it should be. And all of this information that we see now, it is our job and our obligation to spread it amongst each other. Now that we are here and we have our Black History moments, I like to start off with some of the horrible facts, which is uncomfortable to talk about. But what it shows is, one, the sensitivity. Number 2, the real world matters. Number 3, the real world issue. And number 4, what were victims of race crimes in this country. As much as we don't like to talk about race in this country, you know what the undeniable fact is? We got to talk about it. Not from an uncomfortable feeling, but from a perspective of it is what it is. Avoiding a problem does not make it go away. Not talking about the problem does not make it not go away. Refusing to acknowledge what happened, what was going on, is completely null and void in the problem. If we want our wounds and our ideas to lick and improve themselves, we got to know that it is a problem. Unapologetically. And it's okay to have not agree about everything. But what you must understand first is that even if I don't agree on something, we got to still continue to learn from each other, to grow from each other, to talk about these uncomfortable moments, to make sure that we have conversations openly, honestly about it. So, excuse me about having all that audio background, y'all. What I want to do now is that I want to play some films and some critiques about some untold Black history facts. What I think is very impactful is I want us to all look at things from different perspectives, right? And when you look at things from different perspective, I want you to have the mindset, number one, that the crimes that were done to these Negroes, these coloreds, whatever type of words and frames you like to use, are something that should not be looked upon negatively, but something honest, with real, transparent eyes. So I want to play some of these things about what happened in business districts. When do we hear these things about lynching and other things occurred? And I want you to understand why they happen, not just how. We'll hear all the time a guy died and was lynched.
Number 4. There's a reason why Black History Month is February. Black History Month was established to recognize and celebrate the important contributions of African Americans to American history. It started in the early 20th century when a man named...
Let me pause right there. As we just learned, remember, we were originally called Aborigines, coloreds, Negroes, Black, African American, which is a word given to us prior to 1983, 1985. And now you see that word being phased out around a year or two as Black Americans.
And named Carter G. Woodson wanted to bring attention to the neglected history of African Americans. In 1926, Carter G. Woodson established Negro History Week, which would later be known as Black History Month.
One thing about Carter G. Woodson I want everybody to know, he has a phenomenal book called The Miseducated World of the Negro. I think everybody should read it because it is so phenomenal. It breaks down how colonization and other things impacts the mind until this day.
He chose the second week of February for Negro History Week because it included the birthdays of two important figures, Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. Abraham Lincoln was the 16th President of the United States who helped end slavery with the Emancipation Proclamation. Frederick Douglass was a former slave who became a leader in the fight against slavery. Douglass escaped from American slavery in 1838. He became a renowned abolitionist, speaker, and writer. He wrote several books, including a narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, an American slave.
Mind you, he was completely self-educated. He had to teach himself how to read, write, think, because he was completely isolated from where his family and where his former captives held him captive. Frederick Douglass is probably one of the greatest, along with Malcolm X, as far as the growth stories in American history, in my opinion.
By celebrating their birthdays, Woodson wanted to show the struggles and achievements of African Americans in their fight for freedom and equal rights. Negro History Week gained popularity, and in 1976, it was expanded to Black History Month. This was officially recognized by President Gerald R. Ford. Every U.S. president since then has proclaimed February as Black History Month. During Black History Month, we take time to think about the challenges faced by African Americans and their accomplishments. It is a time to learn.
I want y'all to remember, these are words that are newer to our modern times. A lot of the times when you heard the word Negroes and coloreds, those are words they called themselves back then. The words that we use have been moved and modified. Don't get caught up in the vernacular. Get caught up in what was happening during this time.
Learn and appreciate the contributions of African American leaders, artists, scientists, and ordinary people who have shaped American history. Number 3. The 6,888th Battalion was an all-black, all-female unit of the military that delivered mail to World War II troops across England. In February 1945, the 6,888th Central Postal Directory Battalion was established to deliver mail to American troops, government personnel, and volunteers abroad in England. At the time, many packages and letters were poorly addressed or sent to individuals with common names and little further direction. Members of the service weren't getting their mail, which had an outsized impact on morale. Officials estimated that, with the disarray of the postal warehouse, it would take around 6 months for the harrowing backlog to be sorted and delivered. African American women were granted the opportunity to travel to serve overseas in late 1944, and the 6,888th Battalion was full of eager, well-trained recruits. Led by Major Charity Edna Adams, the women of the 6,888 spent time in Oglethorpe, Georgia, preparing for service, jumping over trenches, identifying.
I want you to pay attention to how they self-educate themselves to show what their worth was. These phenomenal women did this back in the day by showing their work for their man through multiple actions and facets.
Enemy crafts and marching. Mail delivery in a war zone did not come not without danger, and the women of the battalion faced several close calls, injuries, and even some instances of death. Though the reaction to this battalion was mixed, the 6,888 was outstandingly efficient. The battalion worked in long shifts 7 days a week and created a brand new tracking system for the mail they received. Rather than accomplishing the sorting of mail in the projected 6 months, the recruits blew through the task in 3. Number 2. Madam C.J. Walker was an African-American entrepreneur who became America's first female self-made millionaire. Born in 1867 to former slaves on a Louisiana cotton plantation, Madam Walker rose in power to become America's first female self-made millionaire. She did so through the creation of the Madam C.J. Walker Company. Headquartered in Indianapolis, Indiana, her company was a cosmetics manufacturer that specialized in beauty and hair care products for African American women. Walker's business prowess was matched only by her philanthropy and activism. She helped establish a YMCA in the Black community of Indianapolis and contributed funds to the Tuskegee Institute. Upon moving to New York, she joined the NAACP, donated generously to the NAACP's anti-lynching fund, and commissioned the first Black architect in New York City to build Villa Lewaro, her home on the Hudson, where great minds such as Webb Du Bois and Booker T. Washington gathered to discuss social matters important to the African American community. By the time of her death in 1919, she was known not only as a remarkably successful African American business owner, but one of America's most successful entrepreneurs of all time. Number 1. The 3-light traffic signal was invented by a Black man named Garrett Morgan. Garrett Morgan, despite facing obstacles such as limited education and being the son of a man who had previously been enslaved, achieved remarkable success and became the inventor of several significant creations. One of his most renowned innovations.
I want you to pay attention to number 1, y'all, how innovative all these individuals were during the height of Jim Crow, segregation, lynching, and when others could be harmed and touched no matter what. These stories are so impactful because number 1, it lets you know how dangerous it was. It lets you know how real race and racial matters were, and it lets you know how strong the strive for greatness truly is.
The invention of the 3-light traffic signal in the year 1923. One fateful day while Morgan was driving, he witnessed a severe car accident at an intersection. This incident sparked a brilliant idea in his mind: to enhance the existing traffic signal by adding a 3rd light that would serve as a warning to drivers about an upcoming red light. With a determination to improve road safety, Morgan diligently pursued his idea. At the time, traffic signals were primitive and often ineffective, causing confusion and accidents on the roads. Morgan's solution was to create a 3-light traffic signal that would provide clear and visible signals to drivers. The first light was green, indicating that it was safe to proceed. The second light was yellow, indicating that the driver should slow down and prepare to stop. The third light was red, indicating that the driver should stop. After putting considerable effort into developing his invention, Morgan's hard work paid off when he was granted a patent for the three-light traffic signal in 1924. This groundbreaking invention proved to be highly effective during its initial trials, leading to its widespread adoption across the country. Soon enough, these three-light traffic signals became a common sight, guiding and regulating vehicular movement for countless people every day. With the introduction of the three-light traffic signal, the roadways became safer and more organized. The distinct lights, red, yellow, and green, became universally understood symbols of traffic regulations. Drivers quickly learned to recognize and respond to the signals accordingly, creating a standardized system that facilitated smooth and orderly traffic patterns.
Now that I want to stop this video, number one thing I want you to point out, and I want everybody to understand,
Anthony Crawford,
is that
Mr. Crawford owned a Anthony Crawford
stories that you see mentioned about Black history and about American history in this country. All of these American inventors did something impactful to make changes in this country. A lot of the times when we mention Black American inventors, we do not mention their impact they had on this country lasting. We see traffic camera, traffic organization, hair products, activation, abolitionists, many other skills and improved things that we did that is not taught in the totality when we discuss the story of this country. Think about it. Whenever we discuss the story of this country, it is mostly white Americans did this, slavery happened, civil rights, that's it. It is never the details of ethnic cleansing. It is never the details of the great inventors, the great inventors, the doctors, the leaders, the thought providers. What we don't do is that since the 60s, there has not been a curriculum reform on what American history should be. Not political, not interpretation, but we need to get to the point where we tell the truth about American history. The truth about American history is that it's deep. It's emotional. It's hard to listen to. Why? Because it's real. It's interesting. It's controversial. But what it is that once we open up this dialogue and discourse, then we can start see it to grow. As we see in real time, I want y'all to give some indicators to something about why the progress of America is still hurting. Number one, we cannot acknowledge the disingenuous nature of some of our people. I don't like to give people status and style about what they're doing and how they move, but can we not keep it real about what some people's motives are? I know we have honest racial historical conversations, but some people just love to race bait. Not what I mean by that, but somebody that comes to my mind immediately is that when I see someone constantly place a one group in a negative light. If every time you talk about Black people, it's Chicago, it's killing, it's negativity, that shows me that there's agenda. Acknowledge who you are. I understand what you are doing, but long term, historically speaking, once the story is told, you will not have the benefit of the doubt. The people that tell the story of this country unapologetically will get it from a historical perspective. So when you are discussing American history, Black Americans have to be discussed. In the new year's coming, there can no longer be a certain history month we only discuss it. No, there needs to be American history taught thoroughly, the curriculum re-engineered, the talking points, the honest conversations told. That is the only way we can move forward in this country. We have to mention the Great Retreat. We have to mention redlining, convict leasing. Everything that happened in this country must be taught. The youth will always win. It's one of my favorite shirts to wear because it's true. The youth demand more understanding and more honest conversation than was ever given before. We must understand the way we were taught as we were growing will not work moving forward because the world we lived in no longer exists. We are in the age of honesty, open conversations. You cannot control the narrative, and you gotta speak the truth. People don't respect dishonesty. People don't respect ingenuity. People don't respect motives. People want and request the truth. In this country, the people, the leaders, the other ones have lied to us. The only way you're going to have lasting impact, lasting growth, lasting detailed conversations in this country about Black history, American history, and the stories is it must be told the truth. Unapologetically, raw, unfiltered, without emotions. Once you can master that, once this happens, we will see progress. We will see the stories come about. We will see these honest conversations moving forward. I am here to, number one, open up your mind, to open up your light, and to tell you why I believe Black history is important. But what I need to understand is that we need to stop telling his story, and we need to replace it with the story of American history, the stories of how we influence who, what happened when, why this is important, and how we will change the motives moving forward. We live in a different world, ladies and gentlemen, an unprecedented time. Information is here. Conversations about politics, religion, discourse, and every other taboo conversation that we once had is now free. So what that means moving forward is that everybody in this conversation in this country must understand the world is different now. It's different. You can't hide. You cannot discuss. You can no longer use the phrases, we don't want to talk about in this country moving forward. History will be discussed. The stories will be told. And whoever is open, unapologetic, willing to discuss in detail will win and grow long term. This is the first installment of Black History Stories. Next time I see you on live, I want to give you a legacy point about details about people in history that we have never discussed. I want to go into controversial history, doing my program on detailed points. We will discuss politics, religion, everything on the docket. This is phase 1 of the 4-part lecture series I want to give. And let's important topic types in. It's your boy, King Crowder, back again with another flamethrower with an introduction on the story of American history. I wanted to give you a breakdown of what the symbolization, what the names were, and how our history needs to be taught moving forward. Please comment, like, and subscribe to the channel. Hope you like what you're learning. Hope you like the information given to you. I am here to teach you everything I wish somebody ever knew. I want to break it down to your simplest form in easy ways to understand. Remember, this month, I want to tackle all the tough conversations unapologetically, unscared, and as a champion. Until next time, take care of yourself, take care of your family, give back, love, and check on everybody. It's your boy checking out. Peace.